We are live for another Thursday Truth Proof live stream, and sun comes round, Paul.
Absolutely, we say it every Thursday, we say it every Sunday, but it's great, isn't it? And it's just good to be here and sharing a bit of information. And I'm looking forward to talking to John Hanson tonight. And I think you've got a few things lined up you want to ask him. But how's your week been?
Oh, not too bad. Just hang on fire. I've just got to turn something off.
Yeah, no worries. Left your toast on. Oh, I know. There we have YouTube people, but I've been guilty of that myself. So
duplicity there. I was coming in there. I was hearing myself twice. Huh?
Yeah,
right. So how's the week been? Yeah, well, we've been. I've been doing some edits on the second Wolflands film. So we're getting that in some kind of shape where we can look at it and just see, where we're going and what other interviews we've got to get in there. So yeah, so that's been on the boil all this week. What have you been doing?
Well, yes, pretty much same. I mean, not on so much Wolflands, although we've done some of that together, but you've been editing it. But pretty much same. I've been out, me and the Bobsters been out on our little adventures. We went on one yesterday, and we'll get to John in a minute because it's John Hanson's show. It's Haunted Skies tonight. That's what we're talking about. But I were in some ferns and some bracken that were about 4 foot high. Well, I'm only about 4 foot. And honestly, no tracks had been made from it. It was just me and Bobby, and I had to carry him. Huh. So Linny called round today, and I showed him. I said, "Here, look at this little bit of film." So we've been putting a bit of that on as a short. But yeah, quite funny. But we've had a few nights on cliff tops where things interesting have happened. So yeah, no complaints.
Right. And when we got in the chat tonight, then Paul.
Well, there's 103 people here already, and I know I'm not going to get through all these names, but I can see Karen Behrman, Martin Abbas, Olgi, Steph, Ginge, Galber, Elaine, Mrs. Linney, Ian will be in, Pete will be watching. Let's have a look. Bren, I didn't see Bren, so that's good to see you, mate. Fortian, and I saw Philip Mantlin. I'm sure I saw Philip's name. Tony Worrell, Zeno. Zero Dawn, Evening Zero, Nick's Exploration, good to see you, mate. Dragonborn, Welsh Wend. As usual, I mean, there's 123 now. As usual, I've probably said about 20 names, and there's a lot. Vladimir, yeah, well, good to see you, mate. I hope. Scott Lawrence, Bridget Van Den Bosch, Al Durham, all good. We are 138. Diane Farrell, Deb. We're going to have to start, aren't we? Welsh Wend, Adam Sandor.
Sure. Yeah. And if you've got any questions for Paul or his guest tonight, please put them in caps, and I'll read them out starting around about 8 o'clock. And Trevor is doing the moderating tonight. So there we go.
Thanks, Trev. He'll keep punching it out there, like as Les has just said. Questions in caps, please. And it does help us a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, without further ado, then we'll bring our guest on for tonight. And
there he is, John Hanson. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing fine. I'd like to thank you and Les for inviting me to talk tonight. And it's some considerable time since I've done this, and it's only thanks to our technical expert who's in the room with me now that we've managed it. So thanks to everybody.
Listen, the backroom lady Shirley has done an admirable job, because we did have a few tech problems earlier, but thank you, Shirley, and you've stuck with it, and we've got sorted. So, what can we say, Les? I mean, I don't think there's anybody, you know this, Les, and because we've talked about it within this subject. Probably we've got Philip Mantle, who's got. Add a lot of material, add a lot of information, but you've got the largest collection of UFO-related material, certainly in UK, author of the Haunted Skies books, former CID detective with over 27 years experience, and like I say, you've sort of gone into this subject of UFOs and took them skills with you as well. And how far has it come, John, since you first started looking into this, early days to present day?
Can I just come in and say I'll be back a little bit later on with any questions? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's catch you soon, mate.
Yeah, it's as I say, it's been. I started this in 1995 when police officers known to me were directed to a report of a UFO over the Birmingham area. And as a result of what they told me, it triggered off quite an intense desire, a passion to want to know more about something that I'd regarded before then as really a load of rubbish. Certainly UFOs don't exist, flying saucers don't exist. That's what I thought prior to that. And in actual fact, with that particular incident, I tracked down quite a number of people that had seen the object, the D-shaped object, and in various parts of the country. And that's how it started. I can remember writing to I think it was Mr. Howard G. Miles of the British Astronomical Association, and asking him if he'd got any reports or advice. And I think the president, it's funny how some things you don't forget. The president, Mr. M. Mobley, wrote back to me and said, I've advised my Fireball Meteor consultant to keep away from crackpot organizations. So the thing is you know yourself, Paul, if people stir you up, if people antagonize you, if they try and take the mickey out of you because you're involved in a subject like this, it actually doesn't put you off it. It spurs you on.
I would agree.
And I say, it took me some time to realize that with a lot of these unidentified flying objects that were seen, on occasion, people reported they'd seen the occupants. Well, that took some time for me to actually accept as a reality, which of course it is. And as I say, I've met so many hundreds, if not thousands of people over the years, and I'm still continuing to do so, that tell me their stories. I mean, I was down in South Wales. Shirley and I went down and we did a talk there, and Mike Maunders, Emlyn Williams and Steve Bruce and some lovely Welsh people, brilliant. And we got some further sighting reports from them, and which I've included in the third volume of Police in the Haunted Skies, which I'm hoping to finish soon. But it's been an adventure. It's been a very important part of my life, and I've no idea how I started off with the archives. I just used to accumulate material, and as I say, when I met Shirley a few years ago, Shirley cracked the whip and sorted it out. Thank you, Shirley. So that's the great thing. When you write a book, you can actually check the physical archives, and of course I've got computer archives as well, but no, I haven't digitized anything because it's people have been in contact with me and said, can I digitize it all and stick it on the web? Well, that would take me far too long. I haven't got time.
I don't think, John, that any of us, myself included, would have the years to do that. It'd be a mammoth task. And we'll stay on archive for a moment because, like yourself, like a lot of other people in this chat, and we've got 164 in at the moment, they will have been looking for answers and searching for information for their own little bits of the puzzle. And you might have found yourself in an archive in a library, or we've got the place at Beverley called the Treasure House, looking for little snippets of UFO information. And I want to stress now that you've got this archive that's just solely for UFO related information. I mean, how many documents do you think you've got, John?
Well, for argument's sake, this is I referred to January 1995, which started it off for me, and this is one of the folders. This covers this is January 1995. It's going to be difficult to bloody things so heavy.
Yeah, well, let's just put in this picture up as well, John, so we're getting a good idea with what you're doing and that.
Well, this is just one. This is just 1 month, but a lot of triangular stuff.
Yeah.
I'll show you that. That's you know, and it's there is even more to add to it. And one of the problems we have, Shirley and I have, is finding the time to do the archives itself, because we're still filing right to this date. because there's so much
just throw it,
stuff.
John. Just throw it.
I've just thrown it on the bed. I think it's knocked Shirley off.
No, but the point is, and I'm sorry for cutting past you there, but the point is that what you've got is absolute treasure trove, and I urge everybody in the chat, if you're interested in finding out information. I mean, John's put years and years into this, and he's not after making a fortune from it, but obviously it's all time and money that John's had to put into it, his own time and money. I urge anybody that's after information after this live stream or during the week, or if you're watching this at a later date, contact John Hanson, because we'll leave all there the right links and information for you to contact him. But you were going to say something. I cut you off, John, didn't I?
No, that's not a problem. I will just say though, and probably Shirley will tell me off, but I actually haven't made a penny out of this. I've written 22 books. And one of the biggest mistakes I've made was in the early days, 2016, Haunted Skies, Wiltshire, bearing in mind that this book here took me 10 years' work backwards and forwards to Wiltshire. And when the book was published, and bearing this in mind, nobody is interested in publishing any details, such as a local newspaper, about the Wiltshire book. Every time we try and contact, as we've done the last few weeks, we've contacted a lot of academic institutions, we've contacted universities. What we've done, we sent letters in the old days, or sorry, you used to write letters, but now we send letters, we send a flyer, we explain that we've had students come up to see us, and we've also had quite a lot of film crews come up to see us. But unfortunately, the general public, I was speaking to a lady yesterday, and I was talking about you.
Have we lost John? Let's get him back, Les.
Guys are there but they're not there for us. They're for all of the people that I've known, that you've known yourself, Paul, over the years, that have bothered. They've dedicated their lives into researching and cataloguing, and bearing in mind we have something like 1,000 magazines, a lot of the early magazines, scrapbooks, we have photographs, we have a huge amount of stuff, DVDs, but it's still, I started an index about 6 months ago, and I think I've got to the second book, the second volume, and we have something like 260 volumes like what I've just shown you, and we just need more staff.
well, the thing is, John, there's just you and Shirley, isn't there? But the point is, and this might be a good question to throw out to people in chat, because I know some of you are looking for your own answers. Put it in a question. I'm not expecting John to have an answer. He's not a filing cabinet, so he's not just going to be able to pull it out of his head. But if you've got something that you want to know about, put the question forward for John tonight, and maybe between you can link up and find some information about it. But I noted that you picked that folder up, John, that you just threw at Shirley about 5 minutes ago.
I threw it on the bed, actually.
I know you did. But 1995, the triangles. Because our listeners love the stories of the triangles. Have you got any that you could share with us?
Well, I was just going to say the volume that I showed you was for 1 month. It is cram-packed for 1 month, January 1995. So when we say triangles, yes, I have 1995, 1996, 1997, 1998 were really, we witnessed huge peaks of UFO activity involving what we actually call triangles. But the triangular UFOs were seen back in for argument's sake, back in the 50s. This is from the UFO annual. MK Jessup, who actually passed away in the most mysterious of circumstances when he allegedly committed suicide. And I mean, think like yourself, when you look at what happened to him, and you look at what the police had to say at the time, and they were suspicious. And so I'm not saying that somebody murdered him, far from it. but it's suspicion, and it always been with me something, as I say, worth discussion. But in his book, he wrote that 3 silvery triangular objects were seen over Palmdale. This is in America, in California. And he said that the first to spot the mystery things was Bob Jones, age 14. And bearing in mind, this is 1955. As he watched the long shape, it appeared to split into 3 shiny triangles, which darted over, under, and around each other, sometimes standing almost still and then suddenly darting away at great speeds. Bob called his dad, who operates a control tower for Civil Aeronautics Authority at Palmdale Airport. The older son telephoned the airport where William Kane was on duty as a tower operator. Kane leveled high-powered glasses in the direction of the objects, southward, and confirmed there were 3 of them, silvery-looking and triangular in appearance. They appeared to be at about 20,000 feet, and they said these appeared to be made of metal, 3 rectangles or triangles in the sky, and they were also witnessed by many other people. And I'm talking about one sighting in 1955. If we were to talk about sightings generally of flying triangles, which were prominent back in the 1990s, because of course Omar Fowler and Victor Keane, both of whom passed away, had a lot of information about them, which we're pleased we have. Did you ever read Omar's magazine, OVNI?
No, I haven't, John.
Well,
I mean,
OVNI, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You see, it's fascinating, but it shows that triangles. I've got reports of triangles back to 1900, when, as far as I know, we didn't have any jet fighters then.
I've quoted you a few times as probably having one of the earliest reports of the triangles, and 1901, I think that you've a report of a triangular shaped object. But John, I noted that one that you've just read, the silver metal looking objects, you know, in UK, were they primarily black?
Yes, primarily black, but a lot of them were seen during the day as well. I mean, Omar Fowler, that unfortunately passed away some years ago, he served in the armed forces, and what a smashing bloke he was. And yes, a lot of them were black, but if you can imagine, perhaps in Derbyshire there's a wave of them. You'd be out in the garden, and then this triangular black thing with usually a light at each corner, with sometimes a light in the middle, moved majestically overhead, completely silently, and you can imagine the effect you had on it, and it just moved away and then disappeared over the horizon. So it didn't shoot off like a lot of UFOs, and the country was drenched in them. I mean, it's just they fascinate me. I'm passionate about it.
Having so many reports of them, then, John, and obviously I think 2001, if we're looking at something like what's been described in 1990s, it can't be military. But what were your conclusions for majority of them? Is it some other tech, and I won't say alien, just from somewhere else, or could a lot of it be our own?
Well, I personally don't think so. No. Okay. I've read so many reports. Look, if it was our own, well, certainly we didn't have identical objects in the 1900s, did we?
No, definitely not. No.
So, yeah, but
there lies the problem for scientists and academics. When you've got reports like that going back to 1900, you kind of crush their argument that you know, this is man-made tech. And you know, I sometimes wonder what place. I know science and academia, and people are going to jump all over me for saying this, must have their place in the subject of ufology. But I wonder what place they have when people are making reports, and people like John Hanson are taking these reports, and Paul Sinclair, because we're boots on the ground, and the people who've actually seen these things. What tools would a scientist have, apart from in controlled conditions, to quantify what they're talking about? You know, and that kind of, I don't know, gets under my skin a little bit.
But no, that's what I understand there, Paul, because on a lot of occasions, let's say that they are examples of top secret covert technology, man-made. Well, then, you know, a lot of these things are seen moving a few hundred feet over over houses, over estates. So what would happen if one defaulted and crashed or something? But hasn't happened. I'm convinced that these triangular UFOs, and they always weren't known as triangular UFOs. I've seen reports from the Suffolk area going back to the 60s and 70s when three objects would appear in the sky at night time. And then one of the objects would then move away and disappear over the horizon and then come back 2 hours later. Well, what's all that about? I can't give any answers other than the fact that it's as simple as this. We're all interested in UFOs because the evidence is overwhelming. Sadly, of course, the fact that so many government institutions and the government itself, they're not prepared to come clean on this because A, perhaps they don't know, or B, if they do know, whatever it is so serious that they do not want us to know, and that is the problem. So maybe in a lot of respects we're better off not knowing, because I think it's pretty serious stuff. I mean, these things have been with us probably for thousands of years. Do they monitor us? Is their existence dependent on ours? Vice versa? I don't know. Were they here before we were?
I would think that they probably were. Do you know? So when you were in the police force, then, John, and you'd got this case that had sort of stirred your interest. How were you received? Did you talk about it then, or were it just sort of you were digesting information and thinking, I'm going to run with this, but in the background?
Well, I just retired from the force, you see.
Right.
Well, I do know. I've spoken to. Yeah, it is as Gordon Creighton said to me, it is the greatest phenomena of modern day time, and it is actually the greatest suppressed phenomena of modern day time. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, I mean, the fact is there must be something to it, because if there wasn't, well, we wouldn't be sat here talking about it. And it is a serious subject. The files, you know, tell us they're the evidence, and of course you yourself have conducted quite a lot of investigations into reported UFO activity around your own area, and people aren't making it up. They're not imagining it. They've not had too much to drink. They're seeing things that they can't explain, and sadly most of them, all they want is an answer, and they don't get an answer, and probably neither will we get an answer. But we've got to be people like yourself and the supporters. We've got to
keep trying, haven't we? We've got to. John's gone again, I think. So we'll see. You have at the moment, John, unless Les has just put something else on screen. Yeah, we can hear you. Don't panic. It's Les that's just put the picture of the archive on the screen.
Oh dear! He's pulled the plug on. He's put Les. You're going to be hung and drawn and quartered.
So, John, let's jump to the. We'll stick with the triangles for a moment. And what about occupants of the triangles? Do you have reports of any beings seen in these craft if they're landed, or people claiming to have been taken on board them?
Well, yes, but I've got stuff from 1947 over Found Hope, Herefordshire. I've got other reports, some of them in Devon, where they've been reported to the police. And one was a lorry driver on his way home, and he saw this triangular craft in a field, and the I say perceived occupants, because I'm not so sure that the occupants don't form part of the overall structure of the object. That sounds a bit crazy, but I don't know. But yeah, it's, you know, I know that the newspapers have a field day with all of this. One lady springs to mind, Valerie Walters, that died recently. I think about 6 or 7 months
I
ago.
knew
Actually.
Valerie. Yeah, I knew
Yeah,
Val.
she passed away, and I interviewed her and Rosemary. That was the Shropshire on the way home, and they saw this object, and there were also entities seen. I understand, and I mean, I think my problem is I have too much, and sometimes I have so much. I could easily. I put these ready to read to you reports from pilots that I've interviewed over the years. But it's easier just to ad lib and talk from your memory, because
Yeah.
there is unfortunately too much stuff. So yeah,
Well, I probably dwelled too long on triangles now then, John, for you. But so what about the RFI, the Rendlesham Forest incident? Because I know you're really good friends with the principal witness, the main man of the Rendlesham Forest incident, as in Colonel Holt. What are your views on that? Do you want to walk us into that one a little bit?
Well, my suspicions are that at the end of the day, bearing in mind that Brenda Butler, who we went to see last week, didn't we, Shirley? She interviewed a woman called Karen, who was on the airbase secretary, whose husband flew top secret jet fighters up in Scotland. And this lady, Karen, explained what had happened about this object had landed, a cylindrical object, and been taken aboard a helicopter, whatever. And okay, where's the evidence? But we know that the witness was real. I discussed this with Colonel Holt, and all he would say is that she worked on the airbase, and that's that. But Chris, what a lot of people don't realise is the first report of something happening over in Rendlesham came not to Brenda Butler, but to her partner at the time, Chris Pennington. Now, Chris Pennington has been of the firm opinion over the years that this was a satellite. This was a Russian satellite, which we brought down, and this story was invented. That might sound preposterous, but I know on the one occasion, Colonel Holt said to Chris, who was looking at some photographs of the satellite, said, "You're on the right track." That doesn't necessarily mean what you could misconstrue from that, but that's what he said. And I'm hoping to meet up with Chris soon, because he has more evidence, he says. But I just don't know. What I do know is that if you look at 1980 itself, as for the same thing, if you looked at 1977, the Welsh Triangle of sightings, it isn't just round about Wales. It isn't just about Suffolk. The whole year was packed full of sightings of UFOs. So it was a very busy year, and the Rendlesham Forest itself is a fascinating place. It's an eerie place, and I've witnessed some very strange things in there. I've even filmed a UFO on December the 27th, 2000, which is identical what Tony and Sue Spurrier actually filmed over Sizewell B power station 2 years later. So, and then of course, I've also witnessed the apport of hot stones in there, and also some pretty spectacular things that you capture with the camera that shouldn't really be there. But it's a long story, but it's a fascinating.
Well, John, let's stay with. There's a few things you threw up there. So obviously the apports, the stones. But first of all, let's just draw back to this alleged satellite that had downed. How does that sort of compare to what the airman described seeing in forest? An object moving through the trees, dripping almost molten light. And I'm no expert on Rendlesham Forest incident, but I know you. If we're looking at people knowledge, you've got the knowledge. You've a lot of knowledge of what was said and what was seen, though.
Well, if there's one man, Major Zickler, I think, was OSI. He was in charge there. When he left that air base, he went to another I think he was promoted Colonel Zickler, Woodbridge Engineering. I did write to him and never got a reply, which is standard. But part of his job in the next airbase was to test the reactions of people under stress, the pilots, by, for example, sounding the alarm and saying, you know, something's landing in the forest or something's landing outside. So we've got him that was on that airbase. So surely we can't just remove him from the plot and say that's nothing to do with it. There's so many things that you have to think about. But I'd love to discuss it. And of course, what about the general who was there? Yeah, I mean,
yeah, okay, yeah,
yeah. I mean, go on. Sorry.
No, don't be so. After all the years sort of gathering information and talking to people, principal witnesses, what have you come away thinking or feeling happened there?
Well, you know, don't forget that was a time when we used to send planes up to recover. I don't know if you were aware of this, but we used to, that was before the internet, of course, but we used to send aircraft up to pick up canisters of film, which were taken over Russia. So vice versa. And who knows if one of those planes didn't crash or whatever, because there was evidence. I had witnesses who said they saw something undercover in the forest, and it was surrounded by security guards and were warned not to go there. There's so many different facets with this, the Rendlesham case, of what happened or didn't happen. But I suppose I accept fully what Colonel Holt has said about what he saw. I think he said it was triangular and there was 4 or 5 of them. And yes, okay, the weapons storage area. There was talk of the beam coming down and hitting that, but there is so much.
If that would, I mean, full respect to Colonel Holt, but that would be perfect red herring then if Colonel Holt was running a story about UFOs to cover up some alleged, I don't know, information from another country. It would absolutely mask that completely, and I love the way you've gone with this. That you're not that blown away, John. With I mean, look at the UFO archive. That everything's going to be UFOs, and you're considering everything, and that's, as a great researcher, you've just hit the nail on the head, because we don't know, do we?
Well, that's right. We don't know, and that's just my feelings. I think mainly because over the years, there's been so many individuals involved in that have changed their story, and also, you know, I'm not going to go through all the names. There's no point. But you get you like me, Paul. You get a gut instinct. You look at something and you weigh it up, and then if it doesn't feel right, and there's something not quite right about it, well then, you know, you're
going to step away.
Yes, right. You step away. But I do know, as I say, with the apports of stones, there was a case in Birmingham, in Thornton Road, Washwood Heath, Birmingham, many years ago. And I was a copper then, but I knew nothing about it. But that was 3 people's houses that were getting blitzed by falling stones, very similar to the ones in Rendlesham Forest, and very similar to other sites around the world where illogically stones would fall from nowhere and cause damage and even hurt people. And the one at Washwood Heath was interesting. That was Sir Arthur Clarke was involved in that. He sent a film crew over, and they didn't do anything at night, but only did it in the day. Well, I tracked down quite a few witnesses, and the interesting thing about that, and this is the way I'm heading, is that the house in the middle, which was getting most of the stones, went over a 2-year period. I was able to deduce, or certainly I was able to discover from conversation with some of the witnesses, that the flagstones, which in the back garden, which formed a path, had come from a local church, and they'd been moved about quite a bit. And the number of occasions I've come across where religious artifacts or have been moved and then things happen. Well, of course, many people would say, what's that got to do with UFOs? The question is, it's probably got a lot to do with UFOs.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely a link, and I think you probably agree with me. We've had conversations about this, that there's an association between UFOs and our earthly perception or nomination is paranormal or supernatural, but there is, and a lot of people can suffer physical as well as psychological problems. I mean, somebody once said to me, well, how can you prove that UFOs exist? Well, certainly the evidence is overwhelming. As I said to you before, if it wasn't, I'd be sat up here tucked in this bed having me cup of cocoa rather than sat here going on about this bloody UFOs. But Shirley, wake up. Shirley's gone to sleep.
No, so that's because we're so interesting.
Yeah, okay.
So, no, but so before we move away from the apports, these objects, these pieces of rock and stone and other objects that seemingly fall from the sky. In Rendlesham Forest, you had, and I think Brenda's had something to do with them as well, and I certainly know that Derek Savory did as well, didn't he? They were hot, weren't they, or warm?
Well, they were. First of all, rest in peace, Derek, because you know he passed away.
I do, yeah, lovely guy. Loads of time for Derek. Yep.
Passed away, I don't know, a couple of months ago. But yeah, with the interesting thing about the stones is that, and I've been out there in the middle of the night, about 1 o'clock in the morning or something, sat round, and the instruction is to just sit there and shut up. I suppose that comes under the label of meditation, but you would sit down there in the quiet of the forest. You don't hear much. You don't hear any other birds or owls or foxes or whatever. So you'd sit there, and suddenly there'd be something would hit the ground, and you'd swing your torch round. And bearing in mind, it's a soft, spongy surface in the forest, and there are stones everywhere, the round, polished stones. And you'd look round, that's cold. Then you pick up the next one, perhaps, and that's hot, too hot to just about to pick up. And I had some of these examined by a scientist who was able to determine that if you like, the control stones that were taken from the outside were normal. They were age related. There were fissures in them, and they were dirty. But then ones that fell, the hot ones, looked as if they'd just been made, which is absolutely ridiculous thing to say. But that's what she told me, and they were devoid of any age-related imperfections. So who's levitating them? Because they don't fall from the sky. One man contacted me and said that he thought that birds were picking them up and were dropping them in, which is absolute rubbish. So I've been there and witnessed that. And bearing in mind, when I first started going to Rendlesham, people used to tell me about these things, and I used to inwardly smile. I'd always say, "Oh wow, that's fascinating!" Like with the orbs, you know, and the light displays there. And I thought, well, there's an explanation all for this. And a professional photographer went down with me. He said, "Oh, it can be explained away, John." But he soon changed his mind after he captured some amazing stuff. So, is it something to do with the forest? Is it? Are there some? I know there are ancient structures in the forest. So again, we're going back to ancient structures and UFOs, and I've got in front of me an amazing bloke. Actually, he's passed away. Cosmic Pulse of Life, which is that's Trevor James Constable. This book he sent to me, Orgon Energy Man, and also I don't know if you've ever met. You might have met him. Terence Roy Dutton.
No, I haven't. No.
Well, Terence he's done graphs. He's able to do a graph. He's passed away now, but he's done a lot of work with Val, and also Brenda. Brenda went up to see him, and he's able to sort out the with these graphs that, you know, time, day and date, what the planetary alignment is, what the where it's situated, and he's able to, and he was able to forecast more or less when the next UFO incident was going to take place. Now that's just amazing stuff, but it's sadly he's passed away, and so many of us over the years, really, like yourself, crikey, you've laboured for many years to keep the flag waving on all of this, and the shame of it is that we're not. What are we actually achieving?
Well, I think, John, I think you're achieving a lot. I mean, look at the amount of information that you've amassed, and the direction that you can put that to other people. That's a massive achievement. Plus the amount of people that you've spoken to, and the fact that people are willing to come to you and share that information shows an high level of trust in you. So I wouldn't play down what you're achieving and what you're not achieving. I mean, Philip Mantle, I can see him there. Well, he's got a question, so I'll let him. That can get read out in a bit. I don't want to just take it off Les and Trev, because they'll be putting it out there. It's a nice question, by the way. So you know what?
I was just going to say, it's not about Pontefract cakes.
It'll be about Pontefract cakes, or the size of his hands, probably.
Okay.
But right, let's kind of jump away from Rendlesham Forest. Oh, just stay with it for a minute. Do you think then, after all research that you've done in all the different locations, and some of it you haven't actually been boots on the ground, but you've got information, do you think certain areas then attract a lot more UFO related incidents and other paranormal incidents than others?
Well, I do indeed. Yes. Yeah. Ancient lines of energy. I think was it Emlyn Williams I was speaking to at Swansea, and he'd done some sort of graph that took a tract right down from the top of the country to the line went down through Rendlesham Forest. So there is so much to think about, but for me, yes, I accept there could be extraterrestrial. Yes, in a sense, maybe they are extraterrestrial, as I explained before. Maybe they came before us. Maybe they've got more right to the planet for us. The sad part about it is that, unfortunately, we are beginning to endanger our planet. We've been doing that for many years. So let's hope that eventually we can get an answer from what is the greatest conundrum of modern day mankind, isn't it? And
absolutely,
for me, it's I just say it's so annoying that over the years I've had a lot of publicity, but it's taking the P publicity, and but that is the way the media works, because the media all they want is entertainment. And I've looked through thousands of newspaper cuttings going back to the 50s and the 60s, and really it was only about the beginning of this century that the media really took the mickey out of UFO researchers, people that had the guts to come forward and the courage to report what they've seen. So yeah, I mean, we're lucky that people will do that, because quite often if it gets into the press, they'll just get the mickey taken out of them, and that's not changed, which is a shame, isn't it?
Do you think then, John, do you think there's an effort from some higher power then to actually do that and instill that in people? You know, like we touched on earlier with science and scientists. I think we obviously need science and academia in the subject, but we need science and academia in the subject boots on ground, because how can they possibly appreciate what a man, a woman, a child, a group of people have seen and experienced in that environment, talking about it from a laboratory or some kind of controlled environment, or what they know from reading and studying physics. It's what people are seeing and experiencing is in a totally different level, I believe. And I think that until we get on boots on the ground, kind of, I don't know, facilities that are going to try and observe in these areas of high strangeness, and I know there will be places, we're not going to get an answer. I don't think they've got the tools to discuss, and they're not. It sounds terrible saying it, me saying that scientists aren't qualified to discuss what a witness has seen in a location that these people have never been in, where other people have reported things, and then try and discuss it and like explain it away. And that's not me with any great knowledge. It's just my views on it. I don't know what your views are on that.
Well, I think I echo yours. For argument's sake, I knew, I can't think of his name now because I can't remember everything, but a gentleman that lived in the Berkshire area, and he was responsible. He was working at Harwell Atomic Power Station, and he witnessed this UFO. I think it was in Flying Saucer Review. I met up with him, and a charming gentleman, and he was instrumental in setting up CERN in Switzerland. You know, the particle accelerators, and which is interesting because if you look at stuff from the 40s and 50s. They've got these particle accelerators then, and they were conducting these experiments. But I'd like to know, A, how the hell can we afford to pay for it to be done? B, what is happening with it? What are the results? And C, there was a lady in the newspaper, a scientist that came forward and was going on about all sorts of paranormal activity in there. And people just thought she was off a trolley. And I suppose there are people out there that think we're off our trolleys. We may be individually, but if you look at it in its singularity, but if you look at it overall, all of these people are not mistaken. They're seeing things that they shouldn't see because these things exist alongside of us. And I do know that it was a few years ago, they did have a lot of activity at the CERN place in Switzerland, where people were witnessing all manner of supernatural, paranormal things. And I actually wrote to them. I didn't expect an answer and didn't get an answer. But is it by interference with something that we're causing these things to happen, or is it these ancient lines of energy? Of course, I remember the case out at Shropshire, and this was a lady called Doris. I wrote up about her, and I'm still in touch with her. She and her daughter were coming home on the 31st of December 1999, and they were going towards a place called Wigmore in Herefordshire. And as they drove along the road, this thing hovered above them, this saucer-shaped object, as indeed there was a lot of reports like that out in the countryside, which seems to be more prone to supernatural and paranormal behavior than you would do in a city. Well, it's got to do with buildings and what, I don't know. But she was terrified, and when she got home, sorry, I'm going ahead of myself. The object then shot across the field to the right of them, and then followed another line. And it was only later when I found out that, looking at ancient maps, that was following the ancient Roman road, which was what they were on. And she unfortunately ended up with a huge gash in her chest, was taken to hospital, and she then went on to a local radio station to talk about this, other people seeing this object. And then again, she still suffers from it to this current day. And, you know, I've always said, if you get too close to these things, you're going to cop it, excuse the pun, but you will cop it. You will have all sorts of problems, and that's how it works. So maybe, who knows? Yeah.
Okay. Well, honestly, John, and I've not had out to do yet because it's just, and I've got all these questions and I've not really asked them, so I'm not bothered. This is great, and because we just talk like this, me and you all the time. So, what about? harmful effects from these objects? You've just touched on it, but have you ever spoken to any witnesses that have been hospitalized or had material moved from them, allegedly from the occupants of the UFOs?
Well, yeah, yes, I have. Yeah, one of the strangest things. I went to see a lady in London many years ago, and Elaine. I've got it all written. I won't give you her last name, but Elaine, lovely lady, lived out at Southwell, was it Southwell, London, and she'd had a number of UFO sightings, and she always said to me on the phone, I whenever something like this happens, John, I sneeze, and I thought, she's obviously off a trolley, but I went down to see her. Lovely lady, lovely family. And we went outside and she said, I'm going to sneeze. And I looked up thinking, and then I saw this bloody thing up in the sky. The time I got my camera, it had gone. But she had a history going back many years, as a lot of people do. And probably about 1996, 1997, she had a terrible dream one night, and then she ejected something from a nasal cavity, which is like a tiny piece of metal, at the end of your fingernail, and she put it in a phial of water and gave it to me. I kept that in a phial of water, had it photographed, had it scanned at the Manchester University. Professor Lorimer scanned it. So it was the most strangest thing she'd ever seen. It was hydrocarbon, like a knitting needle. And at that time, I think I put in an appeal in the UFO mag, asking if anybody had anything else like that. And one man contacted me from Canada. The interest was zilch, and I eventually, as I say, a few years ago, this is what doesn't make sense, but I witnessed it, and I was moving out. I was living at Bromsgrove in Worcestershire, and I was moving house. I was moving my stuff out of the room. There was a little phial of water with this object in it, this implant, alleged implant. And as I reached over to pick it up, it dropped and disappeared. I stripped that room, searched it, it dropped and disappeared. I told the lady concerned, and she wasn't surprised. But I have the photographs of it. So I did a couple of books called Exposure 1 and 2. Through Amazon Kindle, would it be? Yeah, the books.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And I'm sorry to say I wasn't that happy with them, but the object was on the front cover, and nobody's ever said, what the hell is that on there, except for one man who said it was a knitting needle. Well, it wasn't a knitting needle, and we live in a world of strangeness. So that's what I saw.
John, I know you're a decent man who tells the truth. So I'm going to push you on this. You dropped, and you saw the actual the vial of liquid disappear, or just the object. That's crazy, isn't it?
The file. It's only a small one, but it just is. Yeah. Completely.
What did you think when that had happened?
Well, I suppose it goes with the territory. You think, well, this can't happen to me. It just can't happen. I mean, things that disappear do happen, don't they? We've heard of that before, but it was annoying, to say the least.
I bet it was. And you said that you met the woman, and when you met her, you saw something in the sky. So what did you see?
Well, it was two objects were linked together, and this was over one of the main air lanes going into Heathrow and Gatwick and places like that, which actually reminds me about Gatwick. In the set, I think it was Shirley, Wake Up. Was Gatwick in the first book? It was in the second book, wasn't it? You see, I hope all your audience aren't as enlightening by my talk as Shirley is, because
I think I'm expecting that 1995 folder to hit you at the side of the head in a minute.
Yeah, well, she's got form for that, mate.
And looking at the weight of it,
sorry,
it'd be painful. It'd be painful if it does. So yeah, go on, fire away.
Yeah,
Two
well, as
objects.
I say, I've met other people who've got the marks. The guy at Dudley, he was Mr. Brown. He was manning an excavator, and this thing appeared overhead, and the excavator's packed up, and he'd never seen anything like it in his life. He ended up covered in these marks, and I could write a book on what people have had to put up with after physical impairment. So these things are dangerous, because I mean, there was
okay, then. So, what are the objects themselves, or the occupants of the objects? So you've interviewed and took a load of reports, cross section of society, elite brains to. Hey, I'm a joiner. I used to knock nails in wood, so we'll set to joiners and builders. So because I don't want to make somebody feel inferior, because I'm no sort of, I'm not the sharpest tool in the box. So what I'm saying is,
I don't think so.
No. Well, I just want to be fair to people. But what I'm saying is, when people are reporting these things from all levels of education, are they still reporting something very similar, John? Are they still coming back with the same descriptions, or are you seeing a different type of terminology? Well, a different type of terminology, I suppose, with vocabulary people use, but are we seeing a different description from the people of education, the science-based people who've been surprised and thought, Christ, what have I just seen?
Well, first of all, like yourself, probably many years ago, it was preached to me that there are different shapes, like the flying saucer, the triangle, the disc, and as I say, all manner of different objects. I mean, I was speaking to Tony Buckingham on the weekend. We popped and saw him, didn't we? We do hope Tony gets better, because he's not very well. And he told us, which I knew about, the cone-shaped object, Shirley, upside down cone shape with 3 or 4 globes on the bottom, which is very similar to what Margaret Fry saw back in 1955. That's what triggered her interest off, and she wasn't the only one to see it. Funny enough, I've got a Buforum membership there, and that was 1991, signed by Jenny Randalls. But I believe that I can't tell you what the criteria is, but dependent on a number of circumstances. Maybe lighting, maybe the person themselves, maybe the time of the year. But sometimes people won't see all of the object; they only would see part of it. So this has led, in my opinion, to this sort of I don't know what would you call it, this impression that UFOs are different shapes and sizes. And somebody once said to me, they started off with an object like a Model T, which was a flying saucer, and they came up to the Jaguar, which was the triangle. Well, I think that's a load of rubbish. These things don't. I remember a photograph taken down in Wiltshire, and you could see a cigar-shaped object coming through, not the cloud, but coming through the sky, which would suggest it's coming from some other maybe dimension. But then that always reminds me of the 2 ladies going up Silbury Hill. That one was a doctor, and it was pouring with rain, which is unusual for strange sightings. But in front of them was like this a Neolithic man, for want of a better expression, walking across the road in front of them. Well, they slammed on the brakes, skidded, and they heard the bang as they hit him. Well, that shouldn't happen if he's a ghost, surely. They hit him, and he looked terrified, and then he ran off. And I was saying sometimes I've thought about this, and maybe, Paul, if we look at it not from our point of view, if we look at it from their point of view, for argument's sake, that gentleman, the Neolithic, God knows what period of time he came from, but maybe he was on his way home or walking when he saw these two huge lights coming towards him, and he felt something struck him, and then the vehicle disappeared. So are the two sides of the coin here?
It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? You know,
well, it certainly does, mate.
If they're viewing us with same kind of awe and sort of head scratching that we're viewing them, and you know, we're just about up to 8 o'clock here, John. And are you good for some questions?
Sorry,
yes. Are you good to answer some questions? Yeah.
I think I thought you said, "Are you good for some cooking?" I said, "I've already had my tea."
No, I'm not doing you a curry. I don't like that. No, we'll just.
Okay, yeah, close, mate.
So here's Les. So we'll have some of them.
Yeah, we'll have some questions and some great questions in tonight. Great show, by the way, and thanks for coming on and being a guest there, John.
He's brilliant, isn't he? John is absolutely great.
Right then, there's lots, and I think I've sent myself over 35 questions, so we'll see how.
Oh, the hell, John, you're going to be here till midnight. Well, no, you're not really.
No, we're not. Shirley's got cramp.
Okay, I'll put this one on the screen. I don't know how if you can see any of these, John, but we'll put this one on.
You have to read it. Can't see it.
Right.
Well,
let's go read it. Let's go read it.
John, I'm trying to build a UFO UAP library. How much for a full set of the Haunted Skies sets?
Wow. Well, let me explain first of all. Thank you for the question. That would cost you a fortune, because originally, when I started this many years ago, I ended up getting the first 6 books published in Devon, and subsequently, those books, which are about 220 pages, were, shall we say, were lost from history. I'm not going to explain why, but I lost them. And so I did a revised 1, revised 2, revised 3, and a revised 4, the volume 8, 9, 10, 11. And then I thought, I'm going to publish these books myself. So I then went on to got the ISBNs from Nielsen. And then I went on to Lightning Source, which they've got a place in Milton Keynes, but they print the books in the States. And then I made the mistake, and I apologize. As I said, showed you one of the best books I've ever done is the Haunted Skies Wiltshire, in color, covering everything that's happened, everything with Steve Wills there. There's other people, Kevin Goodman, bless his cotton sock, he's passed away years ago. But because they're color and because they're big books, surely what were they asking for that? Something like about 60 bloody quid. So that's one of the reasons why. And it was the same with the whole books, but we decided to get our own. I mean, you gave me some good advice, Paul. We went through Imprint Digital in Devon, and we did the Wiltshire book, which is condensed in black and white. We did the Police Police and Haunted Skies Volume 1, Volume 2, and working on Volume 3. And I know that's not really an answer to the question, but it would cost a fortune. But what I can do, this is the best way. If somebody wants to contact us, we're quite willing to send you. I suppose you could say it was an e-book, but basically, it's you can have PDFs of a whole book, many of them in color, to read yourself on the computer or on your notebook or whatever. That's the cheapest way out. But try and get the whole. You can't get the first volumes anyway. Volume 1 to 6, because they were taken off the market by my ex-publisher. So I'm sorry, that's a long-winded reply to that, but it's not been easy for us either, is it, Shirley? No. So
well, I'm sure that if Al wants to, and is a good friend, is Al. He'll contact you if he doesn't have details. I'm sure Les will put some details up later where anybody can contact you for books, information, PDFs.
Yeah. PDFs would be ideal under that circumstances, I think.
Okay. So we've got another one.
Yeah, I've got a question from Andy Ross Ghost Whisperer. John, have you had any reports from Durham, Northumberland, and have you heard of Private Lancaster who's said to be on guard duty in 1942 in New Biggin and said to have seen a UFO and has had missing time.
I think I have that one in the index. Yeah, I think I do have that one in the index. We still have reports from Durham. Yeah, but I mean, I can't. If you consider, as we explained before, we have 260 of these files, and we put everything in time, date, and date order, and it still isn't satisfactory, really, is it, Shirley? Because we have to double check. We've got more stuff coming in. I've had to start a second series of books, of file books, and I can't. It is impossible to remember, but I do remember that particular sighting. So we should have it. Yeah.
There may be something for you to look at, Andy. So thank you.
Okay, and I just want to skip down really right down to find Philip Mantle's question. Here we go. Philip Mantle, how can someone donate material to be kept in John's archive?
A good question. John, you've just gone silent, so we've lost internet there with John. Are you talking, John?
It's just the audio side of it.
Right.
It's disappeared.
He'll come back in a moment, I would hope.
Okay.
We're still in silence, but must have just a bit of a lag in. Right, you're back now, John. So the question was, how can anybody donate material to John Hanson's and Shirley's archive? There you go.
Well, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can now.
Yeah, you've just come back.
Obviously, if it's I don't know if you sent a few books or a few files or whatever, we'll pay for them to be posted to us. But I mean, we currently at the moment where Graham Allen is helping us from Staffordshire. We've been having a lot of his stuff, but Brenda Butler's been magic. So we've gone everywhere. We go out and pick up the stuff, but because it's I said before, it's not about us, and I know where Phil's coming from. It's important that it stays here, because I know a lot of it went to Sweden, and I have to be fair. Clash Fan was most helpful because there was some sort of administrative problem where Margaret Fry's stuff went to him, which really should have come to me. This wasn't his fault. And bless him, he copied or sent most of the stuff back to us. So Margaret Fry's stuff is back here, and we people often say to me, well, what happens when you're dead and buried? Well, first of all, I wouldn't have to worry too much, I suppose. But when we're dead and buried, if it's professional and it's good enough to go into a library, I'm sure my kids will ensure that is the case, rather than and as Phil knows exactly what happened with Graham Birdsall's stuff. The last thing we want to do is for it to end up in a bloody skip, because what you're doing there, you're erasing UFO history. So what you're doing, you're weakening in some way the drive and ambition that we all share here. Because we want answers, and the more that you lose, the more that's taken away, the less of a footing we've got, and the more the media love us. So yeah, it's a bit like a battle, really. We've just got to keep the stuff in this country. So sorry to go on about that, Phil.
No, it's good. It's good. Go on, Les.
Okay, yeah. Let's have a look. I think a question from John 4354, and John is asking, I have his Haunted Skies Wiltshire, so much information. Does he think crop circles and UFOs are connected?
Well, absolutely, yeah. The early crop circles, I mean, were simplistic in their nature. Funny enough, I'm just thinking of she was a copper from Bridge North in West Mercia. I got to know him, and he was at home one morning just having his breakfast butty, when a local landowner contacted him and said there's something landed in the field and left a huge circle, and it's still there. Well, the officer thought, "Oh my God!" But he knew the informant, if you like, the local landowner. So he went up there to have a look, and he said it really frightened him. He said the hairs on the back of his neck were up, and he saw this huge sausage-shaped object in the middle of a crop circle, a round crop circle. And he said this then took off and shot away. And he said the marks in the soil were prominent for months afterwards. And I actually contacted somebody from the local newspaper who published a story on it. And I said to the guy, "Did you go up to have a look?" And he said, "Well, I know I never got round to that." And I mean, for me, yeah, crop circles and UFOs, in the yesteryears, you could see an association. But I've also been in Wiltshire, and there's a lot of jiggery pokery going on, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I would just say that again, that on 2 or 3 occasions I've stood in a circle that's been freshly made, and it has a freshness, it has an excitement, and you can feel your whole body tingling. That's happened twice. So I suppose that's probably could well be electromagnetic radiation. But these things, of course, they've left marks, and straight away I'm thinking of the one at outside Warminster. A couple coming home there, they saw a triangular UFO in a field, stopped the car, and the husband said, "Well, really, we should." The wife said, "Let's have a look." So anyway, he went over the stile and had a look, and then this thing took off. And the next day, they contacted a researcher who went down, and he analysed the soil, and he found that the heat of that object, that UFO, was hot enough to actually melt flint. Now that's terrible. And as the wife said to me, my husband had some terrible marks on his chest, which he had till his dying day. He didn't have them before he went to have a look. So yeah.
So on a percentage basis, John, how much jiggery pokery and how much is real? Would it be 50-50 or
50-50? Yeah, I mean, we won't. We're not going to mention names, of course, but there were people that went around falsifying crop circles. I'm not talking about Doug and Dave, I think it was, but there were people that were doing it and to attract interest in the local area. I remember often going to the Barge pub, which is still there in Honey Street. And I also remember interviewing a guy called Peter Sorensen, a Yank who's lived there most of his life, and he's seen some really quite frightening things. But again, it's the way my memory goes. Two other men from Warminster used to spend a lot of time there, very genuine. One was Tom, and one was the names will come to me. Anyway, Tom's a smashing bloke. He worked for an aircraft industry. He was really interested in crop circles, and so he designed a globule. A globule, is that a right word? No, it's something like a football-shaped object, but it got triangular pieces in it. And he constructed this, and he went on to near Adam's grave in Wiltshire, hoping they'd get some response after a crop circle had appeared, and nothing happened. So he took it home, and I interviewed both him and his wife, very genuine people. And as soon as he took it home and put it on top of the wardrobe, God knows what happened. There was movements, there was sound, there was things shifting about. So he took it to pieces and it stopped. So again, there's you come across so many fascinating.
We've just lost his sound again.
Yeah, it might just come back.
It'll come back.
Just wearing on a connection, I think, Paul.
Hopefully John will come back in a moment, guys. Is there any questions for me there while we're waiting for John?
No, but I'm going to give you the chance to do a little bit of self-promotion about the webpage and where they can buy your books, Paul.
Thank you. Thanks for John for losing your connection, and it just worked perfect for me. So anybody who wants to get the documentary Wolflands, truthproof.uk or Amazon Prime, we are still posting quite a few DVDs out all the time, and obviously it is worth watching. Hopefully John will be back shortly. The books are available, truthproof.uk as paperbacks or on eBay, and the the digital versions are on Amazon Kindle, and that's where you can get the material that I've written and the film that myself and Les have produced. And I'm sort of labouring and just hovering about here because I'm just wondering whether John's going to come back, because I will start something else if he doesn't.
Yeah, we'll just wait.
Loads of questions there, weren't they? But yeah, let's just hover on.
I've got to say at this point, if anybody is interested, because it seems like a lot of you in the stream.
Just bringing back in, Les.
There we go.
I need to stay. Where are you now? Got you back. There you go, John.
Okay.
Can you hear us? Excellent. You're in the room.
Yeah.
And just before John starts talking, Al Durham, I noticed he'd sent me a message so I'm going to pass all his information.
Question, or do you want me to say something?
No, well, there'll be more questions here, John, if you can finish reading the local tabloid. And here we go.
No, well, I'm just going to say that I firmly believe, and I've discussed this with you, over the years, I've spoken to many people, Lord Ill Norton's colleague, Commander, the Reverend Paul Inglesby, and then Randall Jones Pugh from the 77 Broadhaven stuff, so many others that they think that they wash their hands of it. They think it's demonic. Demonic is the wrong word for me, but definitely there is an association, as I mentioned before, between the paranormal, supernatural, if you want to call it, and UFOs. And recently, a gentleman came to see me and recorded an interview. And the danger is, of course, when people record an interview, it ends up on a newspaper. Oddly enough, it was on the Daily Star. And basically me saying that well, they didn't even call me by name. It was just Hanson says it's demonic, and Hanson says the Queen and Prince Philip read the books. Well, I don't know about the Queen, but Prince Philip had all of the books. And to be fair, why the hell shouldn't he have all the books? Because he was a believer. Lord Louis Mountbatten, that I met many years ago, was a believer. And so many of the like-minded, serious researchers, people like us, because you believe in them and I believe in them, why shouldn't they? But when it gets into the press, they take the proverbial. And I've just picked this one up here as an illustration. This is one that was in June 2024, it's not too far back. Astronomer to King Chaz admits most brainiacs do believe that aliens exist. So we've got buffs with a heart, ET, and then the King Charles sat on a UFO with aliens. Well, all I can say is it's absolute crap. It really is. Why these people can't take a serious, why can't they take a serious approach to something that's staring at them in the eyes? I mean, you can't see the wood for the trees. So I remember a gentleman on the Nationals, and I said to him, why do they adopt this attitude? And he said, John, they have to. The editors are told they have to, because they are there to entertain the people. They are not there to alarm people. And that's how it is. And that's how it'll always be, won't it?
It will,
Yeah, well,
and
I think you've got to bear in mind that a lot of these newspapers, from years and years and years ago, are registered as comics. They're
Yeah.
registered as comics. You know, they're not.
right.
They're not researchers in the true sense of the word.
Well,
These
well, let's just jump back to some more questions, John. Are you good for that? Are you okay for questions?
Of course I am. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's try that then. Let's go on.
Okay, let's have a look.
Right.
There's a good one here from Al Durham. John, have you considered using your investigative skills, if I can say it properly, to write a book or a training course on showing other people how to investigate for those interested in the subject?
No, not really. I know that before I did one. I know other companies have done one. Funny enough, Shirley and I were looking on the internet the other day. There was I don't know which organisation, but it was long-winded and saying that for 178 quid you can learn. I mean,
It's on YouTube.
not on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, yes, I'd like to actually. There's books I'd like to write on. When I was a cop, there was two ladies in Greswold Road, Sparkhill, Birmingham, that were murdered, and I did have some information on that, but the offender was never arrested, and I know it's a cold case. I know the police have a lot of cold case stuff, but as I was on it, and another case involving a lady was murdered. Maybe that's what I should be doing. I was interested in doing something on the Birmingham Sixth as well, and spoke to the lady that runs it. But the trouble is, listen to this. I've been doing this since 1995. I haven't even got to 1996 yet. So Shirley and I are going to do the next book on 1996, but we're going to do it 1 year at a time because it's fatal to do a book on 1996 to 1998. Because it will be something like 600 or 700 pages. And in those pages, if they're in mono, they're too expensive. People really haven't got the money in this day and age. And people don't buy monies that, we've got volume 2 and volume 1. I was just reminded myself that with volume 2, what fascinated me was that incident at Gatwick Airport, when the media were captivated by talk of drones and UFOs. Well, there was a lot of UFO sightings around that place because of a place called Pound Hill, which isn't far from Gatwick. Pound Hill is an ancient place, and there's been lots of reports. I've got the original illustrations.
You're talking about over the years, John.
Over the years. So I contacted the media, and bearing in mind that we did send a lot of letters out to all the academic authorities and universities, and of course the answer is zilch. But obviously the interesting thing about that is that the two people that were arrested for being involved spent the night in a police cell and then released and given 250,000 quid the next day by the police or the local authority. But all I can say is that I wouldn't like spending a night in a police cell if I could get 250,000 quid.
Okay then, John. Let's cut through that one then, just if you don't mind. We've got a question from.
Sound like Shirley now.
Zeno. Yeah, go on then.
Yeah, Zeno is asking a question. John, during your career, have you ever come across other officers throughout other forces that have mentioned their own experiences, or is it too taboo a subject in the force?
Oh, it's a taboo subject, isn't it? I've met enough police officers afterwards, that have seen some tremendous stuff. But yeah, it is a taboo subject because, I mean, I always say, if I've been on uniform duty back in the 1960s, and a chap had come up and said he'd seen a UFO, I thought he was either suffering from psychiatric problems or he'd had too much to drink, because I did stress, of course, UFOs and flying saucers I never thought would exist, but of course they do. And it is a taboo subject still in there. But I will praise Inspector Roy T, who's a serving police inspector in the West Midlands Police that has been involved with this and has helped, tracking down witnesses. And that's a hell of a job and to do as a serving officer, because you're not liked for it. But why not?
Well, John, I don't know if you can answer this because obviously Roy's not here, and we've had Roy on stream. I think we were probably first UFO-related live stream that spoke to him. But how has it been received since he's wrote the police UFO book with you as a serving officer?
Well, I think the spotlight's been on him, and I think that it's not well received. Although, as the difference between a police constable and an inspector is quite a bit of a. He's only got 2 years to do before he retires, and he was in the military, so he can deal with it. But I have often contacted National Association of Retired Police Officers to tell them I've written a book, and can they feature that book. As with anything to do with UFOs, it's a no-no. It doesn't matter whether it's the press, the media, the libraries, it's a no-no. So why is it, and that brings me back to W.H. Smiths. I've contacted them many times, been to the branches and said, look, would you be willing to stock our books? And the one man said, first of all, they're not appropriate, and the lady said it's not the sort of thing they want to keep in their shop. So, well, why? What is it about the subject that frightens people?
And it's crazy because there's so much interest in it. It's probably one of the most searched for things on the internet. I mean, Les would probably tell me more about that than I care to know. But it is a massively searched subject, Les, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think focusing on YouTube has obviously brought people to look for this subject a lot easier as well. And tuning into a show like with you on tonight, John, is obviously.
Well, can I just say, Shirley has reminded me. Shirley, she's at the window now looking out. We started to put these videos on YouTube and TikTok. TikTok, not Tic Tac. TikTok has we've had quite a few results with those. But what we didn't realise, because we're a bit back with this, is that you should ask people to, as it surely press, to subscribe to them, and because by subscribing them, we can get them out into more. Get them out into more people, and that's important because we are messages of our own destiny. We've got to get this information out to people, because we need to know the answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, let's throw us another question.
Yeah, Tony Worrell, and part of this question you've already done, but for John, hi John, what's your favourite police UFO sighting case? And how is Inspector Roy doing? You just talked about Roy, so what's your favourite police UFO sighting case?
Well, the favourite ones for me was actually 1967 Flying Cross. That was Police Constable Roger Wiley and PC Clifford Waycott, and that was the 24th of October 1967. They chased this Flying Cross. And at the time, the BBC learned about it. They were interviewed by their superintendent, and basically it was suggested that they'd been chasing Venus. Well, okay. If you look at something in its singularity, who knows? I know both men, and they swear it wasn't that. But in that given day, on the 24th of October, and on the 23rd or 25th, there was a huge number of sightings that went on. Throughout the 24 hours, so that couldn't have been Venus all the time, could it? But he's a smashing bloke, he really was, and he's passed away some years ago. But he intensely interested in it, as indeed is his son Mark, that we met some months ago. But Roger did his best, and that's always fascinated me. The one in Holsworthy, Devon.
We might go if we get a chance to talk about any more questions,
Yeah,
if
sorry,
we get
mate.
a chance to speak about anything, no, seriously, John, after we've done the questions, it will be the Flying Cross sightings of 1967, because that is actually there on one of the questions. But go on, Les, hit us with another.
Okay. Have you? This is from Matthew Cook. Any reports of UFOs above or near to Withersea? Withersea's on the east coast.
That might be levelled at me, that one, John, but maybe
I
not.
hope so. Ask the expert. Come on,
well,
Paul.
it's not so much the expert, but to answer your question, Matthew, if you reside in Withernsea, yes, I've got reports from Withernsea right from 1950s. And I don't mean loads and loads, but we've got them going all the way through. It's an active area. And I'm assuming that you've got either a report or know of people that have seen stuff there. So thank you. Get in touch, Matthew. If you have, please do.
Okay, I've got a question from Terry Donnelly. Has John had any close encounters himself? And has he gone? Has he underwent? Did he? Oh God! And underwent any hypnosis?
The answer to that, I have had a close encounter. Yes, when I lived in Alves Church, Worcestershire, yes, I did. Something appeared outside just by me talking about it is the question's caught me a bit. But in 1996. Something appeared outside the window. My son next door saw it, but didn't think anything of it. And I saw it. I picked up the camera and I said something like, that's right, I've just been to the local college. I've just been talking about Tony Dodd, actually, and some of his stuff and lecturing to the kids there. Came back, got into bed, and then I saw this thing outside. And I filmed it. And then the next thing I know, I was waking up the next morning and thinking, where the hell have I put my camera? And I went back to the technical college and it wasn't there. And then suddenly I remember where it was, went into the bed, took the film out, VHS film, and it was me saying, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And it was this huge globe of light above the house opposite, about 20, 30 feet away. And I managed to track down people that had seen it on the other side of Birmingham. So for me, that was pretty close. And I dare say the very fact that what happened to me is perhaps worthy of hypnosis, but I don't know whether I want to go down that route. So,
Well, just before Les jumps into another question, because otherwise I'll forget to ask this in relation to that. You'd just been talking to a group of people, I think it's the school children, about Tony Dodd. Can talking about it, in your opinion, and can it evoke it?
Well, bear in mind that it's in the blood, isn't it? And the fact that you, like me, it's on your mind all blinking day long, 24/7. It never goes away. And yes, I mean, I woke up this morning at 5. I couldn't sleep properly, and I was running things through my head with the third book. And there is, in a way, too much information is perhaps not a good thing, but it's better to have too much than not enough. But yeah, I suppose, I mean, Philip Mantle's the same. He lives and breathes the subject. He does a brilliant job of what he does, and it's a privilege to know Phil. We all know that,
yeah.
And Malcolm Robinson, another, and some of the other guys. Yeah, but you know, I'm sure it does. It does.
Okay, that's good enough. That's good enough, John. Are we good for a few more questions, John, or do you want to move on to questions?
No, carry on.
Go on then.
Okay, not so much a question, this one, but Al Durham is saying, I think it's safe to say John's archive is of international importance. I'd probably spend at least a month in there if he let me in.
Well, that's very kind. The Swansea lads came up. That was Mike Maunders and Emily Williams, two smashing blokes, and you know them, don't you, Paul?
Sorry.
Yeah,
I was
they've been
reading
on,
questions.
they've been on
You know the
Australia.
lads from the Swansea group,
We've had
we've
them
had
on
them
the
on.
live stream. Yeah. We're just reading questions. Apologies.
No, they're brilliant. And forgot what bloody question was now.
Al Durham said he'd like to spend time in the archive and the
Oh, yes,
Swansea.
I got it. Well, they came up and spent the afternoon there. And how many files did they do, Shirley? About 4. So they're gonna come
A
up.
few
Come
more
up.
visits, penciled in then, I guess.
But before we get on to the next question,
We've lost you again, John. If you can't hear us, I can tell you. There you go. We can hear you now. Go on.
Yeah, I just said what we need to do is do an index, but because an index of what's in there on a one line, each day of a UFO sighting, and do it in time, day and date order back from the 1930s. And then somebody coming along can say, I'm interested in 1972. Yes, they've got the file, but it helps to identify the sighting itself. So that's the important part.
I noticed, and it weren't a question, but so apologies because I can't remember your name, but somebody said it needs to be digitized, and that's easier said than done because there's just John and Shirley here, and they're amassing this collection of information and getting it into some chronological order. I mean, and I've got a pile of information, but it doesn't even touch on what John's got. So to digitize it, basically, you'd need more people, John, than just John and Shirley. But we don't have to labour on that. But I just remember seeing it in chat.
But it's not just about digitizing it. For argument's sake, if you want to prepare an encyclopedia, time, day, and date order of everything that's happened, you would go to something like the East Anglian News, where there's a sighting in there. That was before the Rendlesham. You would go to Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind, Somerset, 1964. You would look at Stanton Friedman stuff. It's too much for a human being to comprehend.
I agree.
But you have to spend probably 5 years to put it all right, and then something else comes in.
In the mix, within the mix of what you've digitized. Do you know what I mean? That's what makes it difficult.
That's right, but it's impossible. I think Isaac Hoyle. Have you ever met Isaac? I've met him once.
I've not, but he puts a lot on internet, doesn't he? Yeah,
he does. He did ask me about digitizing it, but for Christ's sake, I'm not AI. I do have to have a bit of sleep occasionally.
Right. Let's AI to another question then. Please.
It's not so much a question this, but an advert that Tino has put on tonight, and Todmorden UFO Day, Saturday, 9th of November, all-day events. Details to be posted on Facebook soon. Possible appearances by Alan Godfrey, Dr. David Clark, and Jenny Randalls.
Okay.
So that's best of luck.
9th of November. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Tino.
Thanks for that.
Thank you very much for that. Good luck to them all.
Yep.
Okay.
Go on, Les.
And I'll let you carry on with the limited time we've got in this show.
Okay, then so we've got 15-20 minutes left, John. So it's absolutely flown, and we really appreciate time you've given us. We talked about 1967 and the flying cross. What do you call it? A wave of sightings.
Well, it was a short wave of the flying cross. But the flying cross is obviously a cross-shaped object. But I am convinced it isn't just a cross. It's only what you could see of the UFO.
Yeah.
I can't explain scientifically, if you like, the criteria or the given circumstances where the UFO, for want of a better word, only exposed part of itself, but that was a cross shape. I've come across people that have talked about cross-shaped objects on the bottom of a UFO and then seeing more of the shape of the object. But that was cross-shaped. It went on for three or 4 weeks, and a lot of people, as I say, witnessed it. And but again, going back to the archives, it'd be great to have everything on a computer, but it's the time, isn't it? But yeah,
It absolutely is, John.
Sorry?
And I'm not saying it's misidentification, because I believe that people were seeing the flying cross. But you know, you get the configuration of 3 lights, and people have said they filmed a triangle. But you know, with the low light cameras, you can look at these objects, and they're aircraft. You've got a light up front, and one on each wing, and it looks like you know, not everything's going to be a UFO. But I noticed
I agree, but these were cross-shaped. They weren't lights. They were cross-shaped. I mean, back in 1978, what about rectangular during the day? What about a rectangular, square? How can a square block move across the sky? You know, how can a rectangular block move across the sky? And in the same way, okay, a square block, or God knows what that is, but there was a lot of them around 1978 around the south coast, and you know, the guy that did so much work is Ron West. He used to run the East Anglian UFO Research Paranormal Association, and it was only through Brenda and a friend that we managed to get all of these files. Otherwise, they would have ended up in the bin.
Yeah.
So that is a tremendous thing.
People, and what were the main, John? What were the main focus of these files then? What type of UFO activity were they seeing?
Well, towards in the 1990s, it was mostly. Pass us the book, Shirley, quickly. The folder on the bed. Mostly it was triangular or square shaped, or but these were certainly a close view. Steady, Shirley. Oh, you dropped the bloody thing. Let's have a quick look. Let's have a quick look. That there you are. That's January.
The typical shape.
Yeah. Well, let's spin through. That was 6th of January. More triangles.
So we've got all on different dates, but similar things being seen and described.
Well, yeah. There's the one at Manchester Airport. That was D-shaped. Well, like I say, we haven't got the time, but triangles,
It's incredible. Yeah, it really is. And I noticed you talked earlier about a cone-shaped object. Yeah. And when during what I've called the Wilsthorpe incident here in East Yorkshire, and I know you're coming to East Yorkshire in a few months, so hopefully we're going to get to meet up again. A lady called Eileen Hobson went to use the bathroom in the night of her property, overlooking fields, no frosted glass in the windows because there's no properties or anything, and she saw an ice cream shaped cone object with lights all around it over in the fields during the time of what were happening at Wilsthorpe. But I found Wilsthorpe in 2009, there was lots and lots of activity, and it wasn't just the same type of things that were seen. And there were a guy called David Holroyd, and it was just a police officer, retired police officer who lived at Burton Fleming. And I went to speak to David, and he did me a little drawing, and he saw a flying cross. We're talking 2009, so there were a big variation. Have you found, looking at whilst researching and documenting things, that the UFO shapes seems pretty much concentrated to 1 year? Because 2009, particularly here in East and North Yorkshire, we seem to have a variation of lots of different things seen.
But are we talking about actually one object? Are we talking about one object that can show itself in different shapes because of the way that we see it, because of circumstances that arise that we don't understand? I know that sounds a bit like gobbledygook, but I'm convinced that these things can change shape, can do what they want, and maybe it's something to do with the person. I read a fascinating article many years ago about an American researcher back in the 1990s And he always made a note of the date of birth of the witness. And he was able to track back through that date of birth approximately the date of birth of the mother, the date of birth of the grandmother or grandfather, and 90% of those date of births for those sightings were always June or July 1947. Now, I'm not saying anything to do with Roswell, but 1947, there was a huge number of sightings. I mean, if this was 1950 now, in 1950, we would have tremendous amount of information on 47, 48 that has been completely forgotten, wiped off the map. And my worry is that if we don't keep up what we're doing now, it will all be wiped off the map because people will just be forgotten.
Yeah, I would totally agree, John. And it's thanks to efforts of yourself preserving this, yourself, Philip, and Malcolm Robinson, loads of other people. And it's all good. I want to stay with 1967. Have you any information on the craters? I think it was 67. If I've got it wrong, it'll be 63. Can you remember the craters that appeared?
It was 63, the craters, wasn't it? Because I remember that. Yeah.
And Patrick Moore were brought in many instances. You know, the famous astronomer that used to be on the TV. I know you know who this guy is. To dispel the myth of little green men. Why would they bring him in? It's almost as though they felt threatened by what was presenting and what was being seen. I don't know if you've got documentation on the craters, and I don't mean in front of you now because I won't expect you to have. But why the rash of different things in certain periods of time? Why do you think that is?
Well, because go back to 1947, when so many people were seeing things over the States, the FBI came involved, and because this represented a threat, didn't it? The fact that so many people were seeing these things, because of course UFOs shouldn't exist. Our skies are protected. This can't be happening. Ironically, of course, it's happening, and it's been going on for such a long time. So, then the argument goes back to the media, doesn't it? They're just taking. I mean, this to me, showing the king sat on top. I mean, for Christ's sake, is that is this discrimination? Putting the king sat on top of a UFO. I mean, that's the Daily Star, But this is just it just denigrates it, doesn't it? And most people who haven't got an interest in UFOs will think it's crackpot stuff, and they think we're crackpots. But that's only because they've never bothered to conduct their own research. And you're like me. You can't form a conclusion without researching, gathering the evidence, looking at it, gut instinct, and then saying to yourself, there's something not right with this, or this is right, or whatever. And instead of just dispelling the myth or taking the proverbial Mickey out of it. And I think that's disgusting. Yeah,
I agree, John. Now we've got 10 minutes left. Tell us what your views are and what you know about David Daniels, and give an outline of this man, because he's intriguing to me, and I've got very little knowledge of this man, and you might spend 30 seconds on it, 10 seconds, or 5 minutes. It's up to you.
Well, all I know is that he came down to, first of all, he visited Dot Street, Mr. David Daniels.
Just an outline of what about, John, and before we get into it. So he visited Dot Street, but in connection
he reckoned he was an alien, didn't he? He said he was he wasn't a human being, but he visited Dot Street, and then he came over to see Brenda. She looked after him for a bit, and then he actually left Suffolk. And I remember somebody contacted me. I've got the letter there that he caused a lot of problems, and then it's alleged that he left in a ship. Whether it's a spaceship or a ship, I have no idea. But what I do know is I spoke to a lady, a very professional, respectable UFO researcher in the States about 12 years ago. And she was telling me about this guy called David Daniels, which that's weird because he must be getting on a bit. She met up with him and his companion. They were on a coach trip, and she felt something pierce her neck, and so did a colleague. Now, I'm only telling you what I was told, so I don't know if that's the same David Daniels that came to me to see Brenda. But he as I say, I never met him, and I know he caused a lot of problems.
Is there any truth in the story that he met Lord Hill Norton?
That's what's alleged. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
okay.
We could talk about Jonathan Reed as well. Do you know him?
Well, we haven't been any defamation. Yeah, let's give us your views.
Well, no, Jonathan Reed, I'm saying it as it was. Funny enough, Derek Savory got him over to Suffolk, didn't he, some years ago?
Yeah.
And he came over with his bodyguard and his girlfriend, and before the meeting started, Bernie and Brenda, and I think Val Walters was there as well. Yeah, delightful lady.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And the information was that we've got to be careful because there were been threats to kill him. Well, I regard that as absolutely rubbish. But anyway, the story progressed, and in a nutshell, Mr. Jonathan Reed was out in an American forest, out for a walk with his dog, when an alien came along and chewed his dog to pieces. And Jonathan picked up a tree branch, hit the alien over the head, knocked him out, put the alien over his shoulder, took the alien back home, put him in the deep freeze. The next day, the authorities came round and recovered the alien and took Jonathan and the alien for interviews. And subsequently, history records the fact that the two of them, the alien and Jonathan Reed, got back together and walked out into the sunset together. Well, if you believe all that sort of stuff, I'm sorry, but that's crackpot stuff. But
excellent, John. Yeah. I think you've just summed that up, and literally got 9 or 10 minutes, and I'm just going to pull Les back. We'll have a few questions if that's okay, John.
Yeah, of course, man. Anytime.
That's brilliant. I'm assuming we've got a few.
There's about 25 questions to get in this short period.
Oh, okay, crack on then, as Shirley would say.
Jan and Andrew. Hi, Paul, Les, and John. Do you think some aliens are humans, just like us, on a planet like Earth, but at a far advanced state of existence, i.e., we are in 2024 and they could be in 5024? I'll let you run with that one.
I think there's a possibility that could happen. Yes, I do. Yeah.
You got any thoughts on that, Paul?
No, to be honest, Les. No, I don't think Bob's got any either.
All open to conjecture, I would assume. Yeah. Okay, we'll move on with this one from South Coast Rich. Hi, John. Have you got any reports from Cradle Hill near Warminster? Matt Williams of the Secret Vault YouTube channel is hosting a Sky Watch up there this Saturday evening and night. All are welcome.
Yeah, I saw the advert. Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant. Of course, we've got all Kevin Goodman's papers, and bless Steve Wells, because Steve gave us Kevin's papers. I knew Kevin, and so we do have quite a lot of Warminster stuff, including letters from Arthur Shuttleworth, and yeah, so best of luck, lads. I'm just ashamed we can't get down there, but we've got other commitments. But yeah, best of luck to all of them.
Okay, and then I've got a question from Zeno. John, how many incidents of high strangeness have you been called to, i.e. like poltergeists, unexplained disappearances, etc.? And have you had any incidents yourself when you were younger? Well, you talked about your the incident you had earlier on.
No,
John.
the only incident I ever had when I was 13 years of age, and I can picture myself now. I was living with my nan, and they had a four-poster bed, an African four-poster bed. I was in a small bed at the side of room, and I heard this breathing, this heavy breathing, turn around and saw something in the four-poster bed moving up and down, and it really frightened me. And I shouted for my mum, and she came up, and she thought I'd had a night.
Okay, John. We just lost sound there, John. We'll tell you when you're back.
A little bit of audio missing.
Oh, you're back.
You're back.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're back in the room.
You're back in the room.
Right.
Go on, Les.
Did you get the answer?
We did, yeah. We did.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We just got the answer on that one. I'll ask another question. Okay. Let's have a look. Miss Dangered. Truth Proof. Nice to see Haunted Skies 1 in the Henge shop in Avebury. I enjoyed it. Has John noticed a difference in police reports? Are they increasing or are they decreasing, John?
Well, neither really. I think we've got most of the reports, and you know, you can only get more reports by publicising it. We can't publish nothing in the newspapers. We can't get on the police retired officers magazine. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of coppers out there that have seen some strange things and but feel a little bit embarrassed, and also serving officers. Yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm not going to hug this at all because we've got a few minutes, but the amount of police officers that have come onto cliff tops with me, around Bempton and East Yorkshire. Fire away, let's go on, sorry.
Okay, question from Karen Beeman. Question for John. As much as some seek the skies to see the phenomena, have you found that it seeks out the people more, or is it the majority of just random sightings throughout your investigation?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
Let's put it another way. Yeah, so does
as much as some people seek. Go on, Les.
No, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about seek. Sorry.
Yeah. So as much as people seek to look to the skies to see the phenomena, have you found that it seeks out the people more, or is it the majority of just random sightings throughout your investigations? Does the phenomena come to the people, John?
I think that it does. Yeah, I do. Yeah. You've got to have the right frame of mind. You've got to hope that you see something and feel it, and yeah, I think it's more likely to come to you than someone who's closed-minded and thinks they're a little rubbish.
I would agree.
I'll just add to that, though. Don't you get a lot of reports where people have said that they never even thought they believed in this stuff until they saw it?
Absolutely.
I would agree with that as well, Les. But sometimes there's circumstances where you're in a different mindset. Do you know what I mean? Like emotional stress or trauma, and things happen. But I suppose there's loads of combinations. But I think if we were to do a graph, we would think that the people who are looking for it tend to find it.
Okay, I just want to mention the people that have donated to the channel tonight, and thank you very much immensely. Greatly appreciated. Lee Roscoe, Truth Proof by John, a pint for me. Amazing work, John and family over the years. So there's a compliment from Lee Roscoe. Yeah, and also I've got Rick Bayman, a contribution tonight. Also Shane Bongos, and as well as Warren Hardcastle. And thanks for all the donations. Yeah,
I just thank people for support. Thank you, guys. And we've got like 3 minutes left. Have we got time for a question and then time for John to just give us where they can find information about him and give it a plug?
Yeah, I don't know if you covered this earlier, but we'll put this similar question up. David Barker, what is your most fascinating report, John? And we literally have 2 minutes.
Right, fascinating report was a police officer in Leicestershire that was out fishing one day. I think it was Stanwick Lakes, and as he threw the cast into the water, this thing hovered above him and frightened him, left him covered in rashes. The maggots pupated, and that shouldn't have happened. It should take 24 hours. He's missing time. He left the place, reported to the MOD, and then he was subjected to being stopped by other police officers because he'd been flagged up by the MOD. And in the end, he'd had enough of this rubbish, and he actually left and went to live on the south coast. So that was a fascinating report, Stanwick Lakes. Yeah.
Thank you for condensing that one, John. We should have done that one. We could have spent 20 minutes on that. But thank you.
So many.
Yeah, no, that's
yeah. We are out of time tonight, gentlemen. But yeah, I've got to thank you both for coming on to the True Proof, Paul. Always welcome.
No, it's been great, and I know that Les is going to put all the relevant links up for the Haunted Skies books and information, John.
The links are fine.
Yeah, everything will be there.
Okay, I was just going to say that the police books and the Wiltshire books are on eBay, easy to find. Both Shirley and I sell them, but if you contact us by email or it's easy to find us, we can offer them at a slight discount. But please bear in mind, of course, as I said before, there's an awful lot of work goes into these books, and any sale of books it all goes towards the archives. So yeah, that's
okay. We are done, gentlemen.
John, Shirley, thank you. Les, thank you from myself, and I'll leave last word to Les.
Yeah, and we'll see you all Sunday night, and we've got a few stories for Sunday night, haven't we, Paul?
We have, including a ghost story from Cliff Tops.
Brilliant.
Interesting.
We'll see you all then. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.